Assalamualaikum and very good evening to our beloved lecturer ADM 501, Dr. Siti Fatanah. We are from Group 2 has been assigned to make a tutorial presentation on Chapter 1 to and 3 of Organizational Behavior. And my name is Nurin Uzma. I'll be covered for Chapter 1. First thing we need to know in Chapter 1 is what is OB? OB is a study of what people think, feel and do in an organization by McShane 2013. There are 3 determinants of behavior in an organization, which are individuals, groups, and also structure. Let's go one by one. Individuals. We can see on the behavior of a person or on an employee in the workplace, how they handling a decision making, their perception towards some matters, and also based on their emotional response. Second one is groups. In organizations, there are individuals and there are also teams working together in achieving goals. So, to determine their behavior, we can look into their interaction with each other and also the interactions equivalence of other organizations. The third one is structure. When we talk about structure, it is basically on how well the business interaction with external surrounding. And this is actually dependable on the employee's behavior and also their decision making. Next, what is organizations? By McShane 2013, organization is a group of people working interdependently in achieving some purpose. It can also be determined on the coordinated unit of at least 2 people in achieving set of goals or common goals. In organization, they are consisting of 3 C of people, which are they can communicate, coordinate, and collaborate. These are the reason why we need to study organizational behavior. Next one is the foundation of OB. OB has been found in late 1930s and early 1940s. Organizations has been studied by the expert from other fields for centuries. And about human relation, Elton Mayo and few other scholars has been assigned for these matters in 1920s and 1940s. Next one is types of individual behavior. There are 5. The first one is task performance. It is about goal-directed behavior. Each people concerned about the work matters and their performance. Next one is organizational citizenship. It is about voluntary act, showing good attitudes and helpfulness in the organization. Third one is counterproductive behavior. It gives harm to the organization, showing bad attitude that give bad reputation to the company, such as corruption. The fourth one is joining and staying with the organization to attract and retain the talented people as they give big contribution to the company. And also having a good relationship, employees relationship. Last one is maintaining work attendance, low in absenteeism, and high in presenteeism. There are 4 points in OB trend, which are globalization, workforce diversity, involvement, employment relationship, and also work values and ethics. The first one is globalization. It is about economic, social, and culture. The second one is workforce diversity. There are 2 levels of diversity. The surface, it is about gender and race. The second one is deep level. It is about personalities and beliefs. The third one is involvement, employment relationship. It is how the organization exceed the expectation of the employees, such as flexibility. And the last one is work values and ethics. Handling non-ethical people is not an easy work in an organization. The last part in chapter 1 is anchors of OB knowledge. The first one is multidisciplinary. OB concepts comes from the emerging with other disciplines. The second one is systematic research. It is a combination of theories and also models. The third one is contingency. Every action comes with a different consequences. The fourth one is multiple level of analysis. There are 3 levels of analysis in OB, which are individual, teams, and also organization. The last one is open system, external environment, and align the internal subsystem. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum and a very good morning. My name is Aisyah and I will proceed with chapter 2. As you can see, that is a definition or more closely precise as an overview of the whole chapter. It mainly explains on why an employee acts in a certain way, what shapes their behavior in workplace. So chapter 2 have 3 main ideas that we are going to peel further about. First and foremost is individual behavior, which comes from the theory of Mars model of individual behavior. Before we continue with that, I will first explain on the characteristics of a person. So as you know, every person have their own characteristics, which comes from their past, who they mingle around, and how they are being brought up. So this will derive the influencing factors that makes up a behavior of a person. Firstly is motivation, which is internal forces that brings an impact on the direction, intensity and persistence in choice of one's behavior to do tasks. But the question is, what makes people highly motivated? Therefore, this is true of the assurance from the hierarchy of work motivation stated in the slide. Secondly is ability, which is synergy of attitude, knowledge and skills of employees are needed to finish and complete tasks effectively. However, what proves an employee is in high ability? Thus, the answer from the question is that through a person being equipped completely with what stated in here. Thirdly is role perception, which is full understanding on our role in an organization. In short, they know what and how to deal with their tasks, and that what is role perception are. So, by you having these three factors, it will shape your behavior. However, favoring situation may result to a better and desirable behavior, and infavoring situation may result to a less or lower performance of undesired behavior. Alright, so the next point is personality. Personality is quite more straightforward that it explains on comparatively long-lasting patterns of thoughts and emotions that characterize a person. So from me, I will explain on the first two models in understanding more on individuals' personality. Firstly is a Big Five personality model that I seem to conclude is that each personality will create behavioral abnormalities that each will provide great benefits towards the organization performance in its own way, which mostly is used to characterize a person applying for a job. However, on the other side is Myers-Briggs types indicator, which provides clear difference on various of personality that every person has, which are differ from one and another, used to identify a person's personality type, strengths and preferences that are known as self-report inventory. That's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Afiqah Binti Eddy Witarsa, and today I will continue to present the third model of personality in organization, which is the self-concept. Self-concept is about the ability to reflect on our own traits, skills and behavior in identifying what do we excel at work. There are four processes that shape self-concept, which are self-enhancement, self-verification, self-evaluation and the social self. All of these plays an important part as our overall wellness, as it affects the way we look at ourselves, the way we express ourselves and the way we interact with other colleagues. And on top of that, it also influences in decision making. Next, I'll be presenting about values in the workplace. Values in general is a collective conception of what is considered good, desirable and proper, or bad, undesirable and improper in a culture. However, on the other hand, organizational values is defined as a core ethics or principle in which the company will abide by. The most accepted values is by Schwartz value circumflex. It consists of four quadrants, which are openness to change, conservation, self-enhancement, and self-transcendence. It discusses the nature of values that spells out the features that are common to all values and what distinguishes one value from another. And on top of that, all of these values form a circular structure that reflects the motivation that each value expresses. Values across culture is a multi-level framework that incorporating variables at an individual, organizational, and national level. It measures variety of psychological and organizational construct and observe differences in terms of culture in two or more geographical locations. The goal is to explain cross-culture differences in extra-role behavior. Value congruence is where two or more entities have similar value systems, or simply put, it refers to the degree to which an individual's values match the values found in their work environment. Last but not least, ethical values serve as a guide to behavior on a personal level, within professions, and at the organizational level.
Hi and Assalamualaikum. My name is Rabiatul Marissa and I will continue on chapter 3, Perception and Learning in an Organization. So, perception is defined as a process of receiving, selecting, organizing, interpreting, tracking, and reacting to sensory stimuli. In simpler terms, it means that we do not see things as they are, but we see them as we are. In this chapter, we learn that perceptual process model is what contributed into our perception. As you can refer in the concept map, from the environment stimuli, it will go through to our feelings, hearing, seeing, smelling, and tasting. This will lead to information of sensory stimuli that will go through to the next process called selective attention. In this stage of process, we tend to focus on the object of the environment for a certain period of time. Selective attention is influenced by two factors such as characteristic of the object and characteristic of the perceiver. After the process is the organization and interpretation, where it's required categorical thinking in order to interpret incoming information. After interpretation, only then our brain will develop the certain attitudes and behavior needed to be shown according to our situation. Next is the social identity theory, where it consists two major elements known as social identity and personal identity. Social identity is defined on how we define ourselves in the society. Meanwhile, personal identity simply means our own characteristics that make us distinct from the others. There are three processes of forming social identity, which is the first one is the categorization process, where in this process we will use social categories such as races, religion, skin color, nationality, career, and many more. As you can see, we will categorize ourselves in specific category where it will help us to understand our social identity better by having others with similar background. Next is the homogenization process, where it consists similar trait within the group but different trait across the group. For example, if you have categorized yourself as a Muslim, you will adopt the identity of a Muslim and begin to act in the ways you believe Muslim will act. Finally, the third process is the differentiation process. For this process, it will develop less favorable images of people in group other than our own group and identify that we tend to compare the group with other groups. Here meaning that we make our own group image more favorable than the others. For instance, for people who in T20 category will think that they are more favorable than the ones in M40. And for other example, in the organization, those who belong in the upper position think that they are more favorable than those who are in the lower position due to the difference of the education level.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Azdamia and I am going to continue for the next several points. Stereotyping in organization. Stereotyping is like when we do a differentiations between groups. For example, we build a group's quality that is different from other group, but then we use the difference to undermine other groups. Stereotyping is not healthy and bad for an organization, but in certain situations it can become important and bring advantages. Some of the ways to minimize stereotyping is by doing the diversity awareness training among everyone in the organization, ensuring everyone to have a meaningful interactions between each other, and lastly, making everyone to be accountable for any decision they make rather than being stereotyping. Next is attribution theory. There are two types of attribution, which is internal and external. Internal is the process of assigning the cause of behavior to some internal characteristics rather than outside forces. For example, a person becomes successful because of his hard work and determination, meaning he succeeds because of himself and not from any outside forces. Meanwhile, external attribution is the process of assigning the cause of behavior to some outside forces. It is contrast from the internal attribution. There are two attribute errors, which is firstly, fundamental attribution error, meaning that if we see someone did something wrong, it is because of them and not from other external factors. Next is self-serving bias. Here is when you take credit when you are successful, but when you don't, you blame other external factors. Next is self-fulfilling prophecy. It means that any expectations that leads to desired behavior that prove the expectation is true. Also here, contingencies exist. Contingencies is all about situations. Self-fulfilling prophecy effect is strongest at the beginning of the relationship. Secondly is when several people have similar expectations about the person. And lastly, when the employee has low rather than high past achievement. Moving on to other perceptual error. Firstly is the primary effect. It is when we quickly form an opinion towards someone from the first time we receive any info about them. Secondly is recency effect. It means that our perception of someone is solely comes from the most recent information about them. Thirdly is halo effect. It's when we give general impressions of a person based on their one trait that we see only. Lastly is projection bias. This is like when you think or do something and you believe that everybody else around you would agree and would do the same thing as you. Next is ways to improve perceptions. Firstly, we can improve perceptions by being empathy, meaning that we can try to put ourselves in others' shoes as well. Secondly is self-awareness by applying the Johari window. There are 4 windows altogether, which are open, blind, hidden and unknown. Open is information about you that knows to both of you and the others. Secondly is blind, which the information known to others but not to you. Hidden is where information is known to you but not to others. And lastly, unknown is values, beliefs and experiences that aren't known to you and the others. Now for learning. Learning means a permanent change in behavior that results to a person's interaction with the environment. Firstly, learning from the explicit knowledge. Here, the knowledge you gain is from data information, documents or files, and it can be communicated from one person to another. Next is tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is very wide. It is knowledge that based on our thinking, experiences, data observations and so forth. Lastly, learning can be influenced by three mass models, which are ability, role perceptions and motivation. Last but not least is the perspectives of learning. Firstly is by behavior modifications, meaning that the learning is completely dependent by the environment. Secondly is social learning theory. Here the learning is solely by our own observations of others. Lastly is experiential learning, which means learning through experiences. It can be conceptualized in many ways. One of the most enduring perspectives is by Cobb's experiential learning model, which requires concrete experience first, then next do a reflective observation later. After that, doing the abstract conceptualization, and lastly, start to experiment it under active experimentation. Thank you.